to close that.
Hey guys, this is Jane. Welcome back to the channel. Hey!
Hey guys, Jane here. So, from the title, you already know what this is going to be about. I am going to talk about my journey as a writer from the start to present. So, you're going to get all the details. Today, you're going to learn about my journey as a writer, which has been, oh my god, since I was little, I think. You will hear all about it later on. But first of all, thank you for being here. Thank you for watching my videos. Thank you for supporting me. If you haven't already, make sure you hit the subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up. It would help me a ton and it would mean a lot. So, thank you. Alright then, let's get to the video. Alright, where to start? Where to begin? I have no idea where to begin. Honestly, the truth is, I can't exactly remember which came first, if it was storytelling or songwriting. I'm not entirely sure because my childhood, I remember those things so intertwined. It's very hard to pull them apart and differentiate which started when. If this started earlier or this started earlier. I'm not entirely sure which started first, but I remember those two things, story writing and songwriting, being so closely intertwined in my childhood. For those of you who don't already know, I grew up in Nigeria, and in Nigeria it's not common for you to see families or parents who read bedtime stories to their kids. I mean, probably happens in some family, but in my family didn't exactly happen. It probably did happen in my family and I have zero recollection of it, but that's okay either way because my parents made up for that in so many other ways. And looking back, the thing I remember most is just getting to know God and being closer to God, and that is what my parents pushed us towards, me and my sisters. And that is what I appreciate them for them the most, and I'm grateful for that. Anyway, so there wasn't the concept of a bedtime story in my family growing up. So at night, I remember when I was little, probably 5, 6, I'm not entirely sure, I would lay in bed at night and I would just come up with a story concept. It was mostly all this Snow White and Cinderella and all those other Disney characters, and that was all that was playing in my head at night. I would go through the entire story from me being the princess to when I meet my Prince Charming. But real life is, well, I know that now real life is very different from what I imagined as a kid, even now. So I would stay up at night while my brain was trying to shut down. I would literally go through an entire story from the beginning to the end before I actually fell asleep. And I remember that happening so many times. When I was finding it hard to sleep, go to bed, I would just tell myself stories in my mind, come up with a new concept than the one I did last time. And I think I got good at it. I got good at telling myself stories in my head. I got good at painting pictures. And I think that is what started building my imagination and making it have the potential for what I can do now. I'm not entirely sure when I started writing, but then it had been I had gone through so many stories in my head that I just knew I had to put everything down. Because during exam periods in school back in Nigeria, I had to study, of course, but then there were moments where I felt my head was so full, I needed to literally download everything somewhere else just to get the idea of all this storytelling out of my head, because it felt like my head was cramped with all those story ideas and my head just felt full. After a few times, it happened a few exams more, then I realized that I really do have to get all of this idea out of my head because it was making it really hard for me to study. Later on, I think when I'm not entirely sure, but I was definitely a teenager by then, maybe 13, 14. My dad had all of these office diaries. Like, he didn't use any of his office diaries, and he had like so many of them from different years all stacked up. And I took first one. Of course, I asked for permission. Well, now thinking about it, I'm not sure I asked for permission, but I took it anyway. I wrote my first book. When I say I wrote my first book, I mean I literally wrote my first book. I didn't type it out. I wrote it with a pen on a paper. The first story, don't laugh, but my first ever title was My Teenage Life. That was the title. Do not laugh at that, because that was me being like, oh my god, I'm writing my first book. And I wrote it down, filled up the entire diary, and after I was done, I remember taking that diary to school when I finished writing. Some of my classmates who loved reading books, mostly the girls, they would read it during the breaks. Some of them would be like, oh my god, that was so good, and some of them would tell me where like needed corrections, and it was just so nice to be able to have somebody read what I've written and also get a feedback. That was like a dream for me. Later on, I made those changes that I got from the feedbacks. The second one I wrote was, oh my god. The second book I wrote was titled, wait for it, I Am a Vampire.
I am a vampire.
Yep, guys, that was the title of my second book. And remember, in all of this, I was inspired by the things I had watched. The first book I wrote, My Teenage Life, was inspired by a Nickelodeon series I used to watch back then. I think it was from Victorious and Sam and Cat and all those like iCarly, and those were things that inspired that book. Most Disney stories also. And the second one was inspired by Vampire Diaries. Of course, what gave it away? The title? I mean, the title is not that cliche. Anyway, the second book was inspired by Vampire Diaries and Secret Circle. I remember watching those two so many times. They were the two series that inspired I Am a Vampire. Even saying the name is so weird. I remember drawing pictures for it, because that time I was like experimenting, like drawing and this and that, and I drew like a book cover for it, kind of sort of like a book cover. I drew that and I thought it looked really pretty good. If I can, I would try and get the picture, but all those diaries that I wrote my books, they are not here with me. I left them all in Nigeria, so they are all at home. But if I can, I would get my sister or my dad to send a picture. I did the same thing for that second book. I took it to school, and then I had friends in like class 10, class 11. I would give my friends in those classes what I've written, and somehow they would end up with like somebody else. And then before I knew it, I started getting permission to like take what I'd written home, and they would bring it back the following day. If you're a book freak, that is perfectly fine, because I love book freaks. Probably I'm one. Anyway, I got the diary back the following day, and there were like some things like pencil corrections, circle, and like a few like comments on top of the circled word, and it was like in so many of the pages, and I was like, these are actually corrections, these are feedbacks. And I was so like excited, and I just it actually encouraged me, pumped me up to write a third, which most of you might have read. The Beginning of the End. Probably the first title I got right. Anyway, The Beginning of the End was the third book I ever wrote, and it's the first book I published on Wattpad. Yay! Now that brings us to how I found out about Wattpad. So after I graduated school, class 12, my parents thought it was a good idea for me to go for a pre-degree program, and it was 9 months. During that 9 months, I met a girl in the hostel who told me all about Wattpad, this app for reading and writing books, and oh my god, Wattpad. When I found out about Wattpad, it was like a dream come true for me because I would get to share all my story ideas with all of these people online. I signed up that same year, December of that same year, and the following year I started writing. Basically, I was writing everything I had already written. That is the beginning of the end. So it was like I was like downloading everything I had handwritten from the diary to my phone, or rather my mom's phone. So I rewrote everything online on Wattpad, and then I published it. At first it was like just a few people, like for weeks, probably even months, I don't remember. I think it was just like no readers, nothing. Then I'd get like one reader or two, and then it just started going up from there. And before I knew it, I had like 1,000 readers for The Beginning of the End. I always keep a record of every book I write. The Beginning of the End started 25th of December 2015, and I finished it in January the following year. It took me a month and 6 days, and that same year in February I started the second book on Wattpad, The Pregnant Soon-to-Be Wife. It took me 6 months to write that. So my second book wasn't my favorite book, but it is what led me to this moment, to the person I am, to the writer I've become, and I am grateful for all of those journeys, all of those books I have written. And without A Pregnant Soon-to-Be Wife, I wouldn't have written my third book. Our Adopted Baby's Daddy is it is my most read book on Wattpad with almost 8 million views. I remember when it crossed 1 million and I was shocked to my bones. Like it was unbelievable for me. Like I had gotten 1 million views on Our Adopted Baby's Daddy, and now it's almost 8 million, and I am like, when did I get here? Like, what is happening? Then I wrote a sequel for Our Adopted Baby's Daddy. That was around the time I was planning to write my next book, Just the Right Black, which was my first ever romance and action novel. And I was excited to write that, but then I had to put that on hold and write a sequel for Our Adopted Baby's Daddy because most of the readers were asking for it. And then I finished Fixed at Our Teen in 4 months. Fixed at Our Teen was unplanned. It was unprecedented. I literally had to come up with a story idea like at the last minute and then start working on it. So I didn't have a lot of planning and preparation to do. I didn't do a lot of that for Fixed at Our Teen, which is why it's not that great. But I am still glad for that journey as well, because it was just like one step to being a better writer. And then after I completed that in 2017, May 2017, I started on Just the Right Black in June 2017. Around that time, I got into college here in India. It was kind of hard juggling college and writing, but then somehow God helped me make it work. I finished Just the Right Black the next year. By that time, I had started getting invitation to join other apps, and it was exciting for me because it had never happened to me before. Naively, I gave my books away. I do not regret anything, but I just wished I had known more about what I was getting into before I actually signed on the dotted lines. I'm just glad that I have finally experienced all of this by myself, and now I know what I want and what I do not want. So after that, there was this idea that had been in my head. I wanted to write a trilogy, which I did. It's inspired by my childhood friends and myself. They're all like much better than the first thing I ever wrote. And that was when I started doing more research and more of like trying to understand what I am writing about before I actually write it. I think that was the moment I realized that I had become a better writer than I was before. I realized I was putting a lot of more research into what I was writing than I did before. Before it was just like all imagination. If I didn't know anything, I didn't have to write about it. But for this series, it's like I stepped out of my comfort zone, of my bubble, and learned about things that the book involved. Like I didn't just want to leave it and be like, let's just leave it there because I do not know anything about it. But I actually researched all those things and then actually took the time to read about them, learn about them, and write about them. So I feel like that series, the trilogy, it felt like a growth for me because I felt like a better writer by then. And then after this series, the 3-book series, I wrote my 10th book, Love and Serenity. Love and Serenity is, oh my god, if you don't know, I love autumn. It just symbolizes a lot of things like new beginnings, and I felt Love and Serenity just captures autumn and a little bit of Christmas. Autumn is my favorite season, Christmas is my favorite holiday, and Love and Serenity captures those things. Well, more of autumn. And Love and Serenity was inspired by all of the Hallmark movies that I watch. Love and Serenity was the first book I started talking more about my character's relationship with God. I don't think my previous books before Love and Serenity, I don't think I ever talked about that. But Love and Serenity was the first book I talked about, like my characters having a relationship with God, and that book just went smoothly. Like thinking about it now, it was just so serene. It's funny I say serene because it's Love and Serenity, but I remember it just going so smoothly. Like I do not know what happened in that book. It just felt like a dream. If I close my eyes for a second, it just feels like I did nothing with the idea. But then when I open my eyes, I realize I actually wrote the entire book. But to me, it just went like a second of an idea in my head. And after Love and Serenity, I realized that that was my 10th book and I was about to begin a new journey. I already had the idea for my current book, which you can all watch about and hear about in this video, which I posted not too long ago. In the video, I talk about how Broken came into being, how I thought about the idea, what I was going through as I thought about the idea, and everything about relating to Broken. So if you want to know all about that, just click on that and watch the video. That's it, guys. That's it for my journey as a writer. Then there's so many ups and downs, and if you're starting a new journey, a new chapter in your life, there would definitely be downs. All you can do is just pray, persevere, be resilient, and do not give up that quickly. Because I feel like if you want something, you're going to go miles for it. If you really want something, you should just go for it, take that step, and don't think about like the consequences or like the mistakes you will make along the way, because it's inevitable. You would make mistakes, but you would have to learn from those mistakes so you do not make them a second time. And I think that is all nice that we all get to learn at different stages in our life and realize who we truly are. But sometimes it's like we go further into learning who we are and it's like we get lost again. Actually doing something you care about, the more you go forward, the less you know, but the more you know about what it is you want and what it is you do not want. So just take that first step and just do that thing you've always wanted to do. It would be hard at first, it would all be worth it in the end. So far, my journey on Wattpad has been all of this. I'm not sure I emphasized my journey on Wattpad as a writer, but that is my journey as a writer in general. If you're from Wattpad and you want to know about my journey on Wattpad, just to give you an idea of what that's like as a first-time writer and a present writer after 6, almost 7 years on Wattpad. And if you want to know about that, just drop it all down in the comments. And if you have a content suggestion from me, or you just want to say hi, just drop it all down in the comments and I will get back to you when I can. Anyway guys, that's it for this video. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you so much for being here. And if you are, thank you for supporting me on Wattpad. It means a lot to me. Anyway, I'll see you in the next video, guys. Bye!
Hey you, thanks for watching. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to subscribe and hit the notification bell.